traffic, neighborhood patrols. Summertime, I think, is a little bit more busy. 646 traffic stop. Hey, how are you, sir? Officer Quota, Chesterfield Police.
From catching speeders
80 miles an hour.
to warning drivers.
Reason I'm stopping you is a couple things. You know your front tire's going flat, right?
And writing tickets.
Did you move over for me when I was on the shoulder or off my lights?
Patrol officers in Chesterfield County have their hands full when it comes to traffic enforcement, and that's only part of their job.
Our job's more to serve, basically to help people through tough times.
Still, Master Officer Matt McCory says he pulls over an average of 4 to 5 drivers every day, though he says he only writes 1 or 2 of them a ticket.
I'll generally can help them out a little bit, issue them a warning instead of a summons.
But Adam Hunter, who lives in Chesterfield, says he sometimes feels like officers are out to get him.
I guess they have a quota to make.
But do they? This performance report given to CBS 6 by a former Chesterfield officer would seem to indicate yes. It shows the following work goals: 2 to 3 traffic stops per day and 1 arrest per day. Failure to meet those expectations would lead to disciplinary action.
I think that could push someone to abuse of power.
They're supposed to be here to protect and serve, not to harass and annoy.
The former officer tells us he resigned after being denied a 1% raise for not making enough traffic stops and arrests. We took the report we obtained to delegates Riley Ingram and Dolores McQuinn, who represent parts of Chesterfield County.
Interesting. This is shocking. It really is.
Okay. This is a little disconcerting, isn't it?
Would you be okay with the local police department mandating that their officers have to write a certain number of tickets per week?
I'm completely against that because you don't know the situation.
We brought those concerns straight to the Chesterfield Police Department.
You think Chesterfield County police officers are evil and just out to target our citizens? That's just completely false.
Lieutenant Colonel Dan Kelly says yes, the department does expect every patrol officer to make 3 traffic stops and 1 arrest during each shift. That adds up to about 270 stops and 90 arrests every day.
Our officers are on the roadways 12 hours a day. 12 hours a day. And so in a 12-hour period of time, they stop 3 cars. I don't think that's unfairly targeting our citizens.
Kelly says the department comes up with those benchmarks after an in-depth review of all stop and arrest numbers from the previous year. They then come up with an average, which becomes the mandate.
I don't sit behind my desk and just arbitrarily come up with some number of a performance standard that I think our officers should meet. They are held accountable to what their peers do every day.
Would you call this a quota system?
Absolutely not.
Why?
It's a performance standard.
We asked one of the drivers McCory pulled over what he thought about that standard.
If somebody's in the wrong, then they're in the wrong. No, they're just doing their job. I understand.
In fact, Kelly says the department's officers are fairly lenient. He points to numbers that show officers issued tickets to just 40% of the cars they stopped last year in Chesterfield County.
I think those are legitimate stops by our officers who observe a legitimate violation of law.
However, the state of Illinois recently banned police ticket quotas. And after our investigation, delegates Riley and McQuinn both say Virginia should consider doing the same thing.
I would hope that if this is based on what I see, this kind of practice would cease immediately. And I think that as we go back into the General Assembly, it needs to be addressed.
Strong words that leave at least one Chesterfield driver feeling pumped up.
I think it pushes officers to purposely pull people over. People will only take so much.
Nearly 2 months after we brought to light the traffic stop and arrest mandates at the Chesterfield County Police Department, a local lawmaker tells us she's drafting legislation that would make sure officers are evaluated fairly here in the Commonwealth.
Much of the legislation that is brought to the forefront is because someone has brought something to our attention, and that's exactly what you all have done.
Well, Delegate Dolores McQuinn, whom you just heard from, says she received several calls and emails from concerned citizens after our original report. And we've learned she's not the only leader who heard from upset people in the community. Our Melissa Hipolit investigates what other county leaders are saying about the story behind closed doors.
It's unbelievable.
For the first time in his life, James Ballard became angry enough to fire off an email to his county representative.
I hope this doesn't currently reflect the policy of Chesterfield County Police Department.
Ballard sent the note after CBS 6 aired a report about the county's traffic stop and arrest mandates.
I want a truthful response. Is this the way police officers are evaluated in Chesterfield County? And what are they trying to accomplish by doing it using a quota system?
In our original investigation, we showed you a former officer's work performance plan. It showed the following requirements: 2 to 3 traffic stops per day and 1 arrest per day. Failure to meet those expectations would lead to disciplinary action.
Would you call this a quota system?
Absolutely not.
Why?
It's a performance standard.
Lieutenant Colonel Dan Kelly said the department comes up with those benchmarks after an in-depth review of all stop and arrest numbers from the previous year.
I don't sit behind my desk and just arbitrarily come up with some number of a performance standard that I think our officers should meet. They are held accountable to what their peers do every day.
In the nearly 2 months since our report first aired, we've learned the department is still using that evaluation system, and there are no plans to change it, even though similar systems have been banned in other states like Illinois.
I can't see the quota system as being needed to get law enforcement accomplished.
CBS 6 has uncovered details about behind-the-scenes discussions through a public information request. In an email sent to County Administrator Jay Stegmeyer by Susan Pollard, she's the Director of Public Affairs for the county, Pollard advises Stegmeyer about how to address the topic during an upcoming newspaper interview. She tells him, quote, "If you really get pushed on quota versus benchmark, use this. Don't say quota or benchmark, even repeating his words," end quote. And in this email to Board of Supervisors Chairman Jim Holland, a man writes, quote, "The problem in my book is that the police are not giving out enough tickets, not too many," end quote. Holland's response, quote, "I'm in agreement with you," end quote.
Hey, how are you, sir?
Yet Ballard says he wonders this: what if Chesterfield drivers are obeying the law? Could some be unfairly pulled over and ticketed just because officers do not want to get into trouble?
He's there to enforce the law as it needs to be enforced, not to meet a quota and to get a performance rating based on a quota that you're told you need to meet.
And that was our Melissa Hipolit reporting. Now, Chesterfield's Chief of Police, Colonel Terry Dupuis, denied our request for an interview on camera. Now, we did confirm with the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police that performance standards and ticket quotas are definitely a topic they will discuss with their legislative committee this fall. In fact, we learned through a public information request that the association and the Chesterfield Police Chief are reviewing laws in other states, quote, just in case the association is forced to compromise on a piece of legislation.